Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Walsh?
Here.
Commissioner Doherty?
Here.
Commissioner Strack?
Here.
Commissioner Sabota?
Here.
Commissioner Thacker?
Here.
Commissioner Gerda?
Here. Excellent, thank you, Dorothy. At this time, I would like to open the floor to the public for public hearing for items that are not on the agenda tonight. So there are 2 items on the agenda tonight. If you're here to speak on anything outside of the agenda, please step to the podium. Seeing no movement from the gallery, we will close the public portion. At this time, I'd like to move on to item number 5 on the agenda, consideration of approval of the meeting minutes dated November 14th, 2018 for our regular meeting. Commissioners, if there are no questions, concerns, or changes, I would be looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Sabota, do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Thacker on a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gerda?
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh?
Yes.
Commissioner Doherty?
Yes.
Commissioner Strack?
Yes.
Commissioner Sabota?
Yes.
Commissioner Thacker?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Excellent, thank you. At this time, I'd like to open file Z937. The applicant is Youth and Family Center of McHenry County, 3430 West Elm Street here in McHenry. The requested action is a conditional use permit to allow an assembly use on the subject property. And again, that subject property is located at 3430 West Elm Street on the north side of Elm Street and the west side of Court Street. I do have the return receipts for the certified mail, a publication notice from the Northwest Herald along with the signed affidavit. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Guadalupe Ortiz, and my address is 2790 Border Ridgeway, Woodstock, Illinois, 60098.
Thank you.
My name is Darius Pfeiffer. My address is 3430 West Elm Street, McHenry, Illinois, 60050.
Excellent. Please tell us why you're here tonight.
We are here to request a special condition permit for building 3430 West Elm Street, where Youth and Family Center of McHenry County is currently facilitated.
Great, thank you so much. Staff, please do your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The requested action is a conditional use permit to allow an assembly use at 3430 Elm Street. Youth and Family Center of McHenry County, formerly Garden Quarter Resource Center, was located in the originally Garden Quarter apartment complex when it began in 2004. Then it had moved to the Century Plaza Shopping Center, and it quickly grew out of that space and is now operating out of 3430 West Elm, east of Green, on the north side of Elm. It serves numerous youth from McHenry County all year round in a variety of programming needs. It's a great facility. And an assembly use is any type of use that is has groups of people for an event, a regularly scheduled event that could be educational, cultural, spiritual, social, recreational, that typically involves 25 people or more. They're typically conditional uses in all zoning districts. This request is similar to the 19th Center, which was at the old mill building at 4105 Crystal Lake Road. The applicant for this request, however, doesn't, they open, but they typically don't have 25 people all the time, or they don't exceed 25 people all the time, but they do sometimes. And the reason we look at these situations as assembly uses and conditional uses is to make sure that they don't have any adverse impacts on adjacent land uses, i.e. With parking or traffic, environmental, or public facility usage, that type of thing. I think the biggest thing with this location and the biggest, would be the traffic and the parking. Just because it shares a common entrance and exit with adjacent land uses, it's not, unusual, but it just it can get congested at times. You know, I went there and, you know, you've got on-street parking, and then you've got people coming in and coming out, and then you've got property boundaries that overlap. You know, this property and then the properties to the north. So I think that's where the parking lines are not delineated and the property boundaries are not delineated. So I think that's something just to be cognizant of, is the parking and the traffic circulation is what I saw as the biggest, I would say, concern. I think the facility is a great amenity to this city. It's a feather in our cap to have this facility. So the parking and the internal traffic circulation, I would say, is the only thing to be cognizant of as far as from my perspective. As far as staff's concerned, I'm recommending approval of the conditional use to allow the assembly use at 3430 West Elm. Finding that the requirements of Table 31 for conditional use permits of the zoning ordinance have been met. You know, I would just state with regards to the parking, the traffic circulation, that the applicant, and I think they do work with the neighbors, that they're just cognizant of when activities are and scheduling appropriately. There's a lot of stuff that happens downtown. I'm not trying to say turn your schedule upside down, but just that, you know, be cognizant of the neighbors around you and that type of thing. And so I wouldn't even put any conditions on it, but that would be the biggest thing I saw. I'm just gonna read a statement I got, or I received this evening from an adjacent property owner into the record. This is from the hair salon, and it's just a comment about kids walking through the parking lot, buses in front of entrance, liability of kids in line. So that's just for the record, and I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Doug. Before I turn it over to commissioners, just for clarity, I happen to be an adjacent property owner to this building. My business resides, and the easement that is on my property flows into this building. So before I turn it over to everybody else, I'll give you guys my perspective, and you can take it from there. Guadalupe and the staff there at the facility has been great to work with. We've had no issues with them. Parking is a concern only one night of the week typically, which is Thursdays. It happens to be a night that not only does Lupe's business have an additional load of people that are in and out of her facility, the hair salon is extremely busy. Thursday nights are a night that we're in the office as well sometimes. And then of course we have concert in the park and other things, so the street parking becomes very minimal on a Thursday night. It becomes a tough deal. But other than that, we've worked with them and have had no issues really in handling that. My only request to Lupe is that we continue to do that and talk about if there's an option of maybe moving her Thursday night to a lighter traffic load, preferably in the summer months. I think probably right now it's not horrible, but when concert in the park is going on, it is super tough to get any parking in the street side, let alone anywhere else. And during concert in the park, everybody flows into that lot because they think it's a public lot, and then they go fill up that space anyway, and then we end up with that. So just wanted to be very clear and very aware to everybody that I am an adjacent property owner, but that I don't have any issues with it and we've been working with them as well. So at this point, I will run up and down the table. I will start with Commissioner Doherty. Do you have any questions or concerns?
That was really my big question, was the hair salon as well as the neighbors on parking. Other than that, I'm glad you can fit in that building.
Excellent, thank you, Commissioner Doherty. Commissioner Sabota?
Same concern, just wondering if there's any staff out there monitoring, you know, pickups and drop-offs and keeping an eye on the children that they don't wander anywhere, you know, dangerous.
Right, we do. We have we have the total of 6 buses coming in, right? We have 2 middle school buses, and we have 4 elementary buses. There's always a staff to pick up. The bus won't release them until there's a staff there. And then there's a bus at 5:30 that also a staff walks the kids out at 5:30. So there's always a staff present there.
From the street
With,
side, walking
from the street,
back.
they actually don't even go on the street side, they go, towards the back of our building. So the bus stops, off of Court Street, so it doesn't stop off of 120, and then staff goes through our alley of the building and then through the parking lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sabota. Commissioner Thacker?
So, majority of the occupants of your facility are coming on school buses, so the number of individuals who would be driving the facility, such as yourself, would be minimal?
Yes.
I mean, I can't, it's not like the high school where kids are driving to school, so you've never really had a parking problem before. You probably don't know, have one now, except you're concerned with, you know, when the buses drop the kids off, right?
Yeah, so with our parking, I kept going back and forth on what could be Thursday. That makes sense now that there is a lot of activity outside. I didn't know that the hair salon had, you know, more business on Thursday than any other day, because Thursday is not any different, other than we do have Big Brother, Big Sister matches. So we have 5 bigs that come in, and they're matched with our kids. So they do mentoring hours then. But our bigs are told to park in the street as well, you know, but we can accommodate to, you know, maybe changing that on a different day. We do have adult programming that happens in the evenings, that use some of the parking. Also, you know, we're working with our neighbors to kind of adjust with that. But when it comes to our 40, you know, over our 25 limit, that's our youth, and they come on the bus, so they don't use the parking spot for that. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify, Commissioner Thacker, it's the pickups that become the traffic issue. So the buses drop off the kids, but their parents come to pick up. So that's where the traffic issue comes, is during the pickup time. So some of the kids take the bus out of the facility, but then there are some who are picked up from the parents. So then there's an influx of traffic into that back lot during pickup time.
Okay, and you don't want to utilize the city lot, it's on the other side of the 120.
Right, yeah, because then you'd
Right,
have it across
sure,
120 for sure.
Okay.
Just to clarify where that traffic issue comes from.
Okay, and then the parents picking the youth up, obviously they're aware of this fact, correct?
They are, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Thacker.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gurdon?
Most of the questions have been, I guess, answered as we're kind of this end of the table. But, so the front, or there's gonna be off of 120, is there any plans, or is there gonna be stops so that people can't be, kids cannot be picked up on 120, causing traffic? I mean, are they kind of forced to the back of the parking lot to?
Yeah, so there's no pickup. When we moved into the building, we had said that there was gonna be no drop off or pickup off of 120, not from parents or from our school buses.
That's the biggest concern that I would have.
Excellent, thank you, Commissioner Gurdon. Commissioner Walsh?
Hi. So no school buses go into the parking lot at all? Shared with your property at all?
They couldn't make the swing if they came.
Well, even the short ones?
No, I don't think they could turn one, well, I mean, they'd have
Yeah.
to make a 17-point turnaround to be able to do that, so they don't come in the lot.
So
We've,
no school bus
we've
driver
worked
can
with
do it.
Lupe to make sure that, you know, they don't enter and try to come in there, cause it would be super tough for them to get out.
Yeah, okay. And all the parking and stuff is probably gonna be fun. I guess, why this building?
Why this building? Well, we were at 3733, and that was at 12 square feet.
Right.
12,000 square feet, and so we were looking for a larger building. Yeah, a larger building to serve all the, you know, the community need, and then, we liked the location where it's at. We were looking for a location that was more centralized.
Okay.
We do have kids coming from all schools in McHenry. So we wanted something where if they didn't have transportation available, they would be able to walk, you know, so it was close enough to East too as well, so if our high school kids could take the shuttle from west to east, and then they could walk to our site. So we thought that this, being centralized was definitely important to us. And there was a lot of other little things that go into it, like having 2 separate doors in their entrance for our youth programming and adult programming. That was also very important. But we searched for a really long time. I met with Doug on trying to find a great location, so definitely need.
Good.
Thank you, Commissioner Walsh. Anyone else, questions or concerns before I go to the public? At this time, I would like to open the floor to the public portion of the meeting. If anyone from the gallery would like to speak on this matter, please step up to the podium. Seeing no movement, I will close the public portion. Return it back to questions or concerns from commissioners. Excellent. No questions or concerns, I would be looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Commissioner Walsh?
Second.
Reed?
Oh, I read first and then we second. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
Make a motion of approval of a conditional use permit to allow assembly use at 3430 West Elm Street. Staff finds the requirements of table 31 for conditional use permits of the zoning ordinance have been met.
Excellent, thank you, Commissioner Walsh. Do I have a second?
It's been a while.
Commissioner Gerda, thank you so much. Additional questions, concerns? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Storack?
Yes.
Commissioner Sabota?
Yes.
Commissioner Thacker?
Yes.
Commissioner Gerda?
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to close file Z937.
Good. Yeah, have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
You as well.
At this time, I'd like to open file Z940. Z940, map amendment from RM2 high density multifamily residential, a variance from off-street parking and loading requirements, and a use variance to allow commercial land use for the property located at 414 South Crystal Lake Road. The applicant is Dr. Haas and Dr. Ramadan, 10529 Louetta Lane, Orland Park, Illinois, 60467. The subject property is 414 South Crystal Lake Road, commonly known as the Kane Farm, which is located on the east side of Crystal Lake Road and north of Bull Valley Road and south of the trails of Winding Creek subdivision. I do have the certified mail return receipts along with the publication notice and the sworn affidavit signed by the petitioner. Anyone who's an attorney at the table? Do I have an attorney at the table? Excellent. Everybody raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Each one of you, please need to state your name and address for the record.
Andrew Sipes, 816 Center Street, McHenry.
El Sayed Hassanin, 10529 Louetta Lane, Orland Park, Illinois, 60467.
Thank you.
Haitham Ramadan, 8113 Pickens Drive, Orland Park, Illinois, 60462.
Excellent.
Raymond Clark, 344 West Willow, Chicago, Illinois.
Excellent. Thank you. Tell us why you're here this evening.
We actually are asking for zoning map amendment to RM2 high density multifamily residential, and also asking for variance from the off-street parking and loading requirement, use variance to allow commercial land uses on the subject property.
Excellent, thank you. Staff, please give us your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Planning and Zoning Commission considered an application submitted by the chapel for a 25,000 square foot church a couple of years ago on this property. At that time, the property was annexed. However, the chapel decided to rehabilitate existing building 1809 South Illinois Route 31. If this project moves forward, there's an existing annexation agreement which would need to be amended at the city council level. The project as proposed in front of you consists of two phases. The first phase is a building which is an independent senior living facility consisting of about a 200,000 square foot building with 175 living units and 10,000 square feet of commercial. The second phase to the east of that consists of about 136,000 square foot building, which would house 125 dwelling units. And the second phase would be constructed at some point in the future based on a new market study. Staff worked with the applicant for numerous weeks on the application. However, in staff's opinion, there's a lot of significant issues in staff's belief that with the application which present obstacles in staff supporting the application or the request as presented. I'm going to go through some of those, and there was also, I should state, a traffic study that was done by the applicant, and there was a review done, and the review is part of your packet, and a lot of those comments are consistent with the comments I made in the staff report of the traffic portion of the review. The first comment I would make is staff does not agree with the two-phase plan. Not necessarily saying I disagree with the proposed zoning map amendment or the land use. However, I could not agree with supporting a two-phase plan with the second phase being sometime in the future and being based on a market study that has not been completed at this time. It's basically about on 125 dwelling units or apartment dwelling units when there could be a demand for them, we don't know. So that's point number one. The second point is that the traffic study submitted with the application and the site plan aren't the same, they don't match. The site plan has 2 points of access, the traffic study contemplates 1 point of access. So that's a significant deviation. So there's some assumptions made in the traffic study that the traffic engineer points out that need to be clarified as far as land uses that affect trip generation, that affect off-site road improvements that may or may not need to be done. So that needs to be clarified as well. The recommendation in the traffic study for off-site traffic improvements are I probably should leave this to the traffic engineer, but they make some recommendations as far as what traffic improvements may or may not be required at the end of the traffic report. They state that these 4 sets of improvements could be required, but they don't state what is required or what should be done. They just state this could be done, this could be done, this could be done, or this could be done. So the traffic study is very suggestive. It's not very clear as to what action should be taken. So I don't think there's definitive direction as to what off-site improvements need to be done. The market study that was completed anticipates the applicant constructing 72 independent living units as opposed to the 175 units that are proposed. Again, that may or may not be something that can be clarified, but that's just something that's inconsistent or a deviation from what was submitted. As far as the variance for the off-street parking and loading, there needs to be more information given on this. Parking's determined based on dwelling unit size, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and it's hard to determine how many spaces would be required based on, we don't know what that bedroom mix is. So, and conversely, the independent living wouldn't require as much parking. Also, the commercial dwelling, or I'm sorry, the commercial, we don't know much about the commercial, space. The commercial space, I think are offices, or medical offices, primarily. But we need to know more about where they are, where they're located on the plan. I think I know where they are on the west side, but they require more parking, 3.5 spaces per 1,000 square feet. So that would clarify that. And I think I talked about the commercial. So these points really make it hard to recommend approval of the requested actions. They're significant because they deal with traffic, land use, and internal site circulation. And those are very large issues. So at this point, staff's recommendation is denial of the zoning map amendment to RM2, multifamily residential. Staff finds the requirements in table 33 of the zoning ordinance have not been met. Denial of the variance from the off-street parking and loading requirements to develop the property in accordance with the site plan submitted as part of the application packet. Staff finds the requirements of table 32 variances of the zoning ordinance have not been met. And denial of the use variance to allow commercial land uses on the subject property. Staff finds the requirements in table 32A use variances of the zoning ordinance have not been met. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Doug. Before I turn it over to commissioners, can we just chat very quickly? The recommendation of denial on the map amendment, can you just shed some light on, you talked about them in your staff report at each one of these things. If I were to look at the bullet points in the staff report, just so that I can give the commissioners clarification on which ones of those items fit with those.
Yep.
The first, the amendment to the RM2 to high density, is it due to the traffic and parking together? Or is that in number 2 here?
I wouldn't recommend approval of rezoning a property without knowing what exactly is going on. Right, otherwise you're kind of given carte blanche to develop a property with RM2 zoning.
Got it. And then obviously the second item, the variance of the off-street parking and loading requirements, because we don't know whether they're 1 or 2 bedroom, that's part of why it's tougher to approve that, because we don't know what that mix looks like.
Right. We don't know the parking, we don't know the unit mix, we don't know the commercial, exactly what that is, and that adds to the parking. That's a different parking ratio.
Gotcha.
The senior living is a different parking ratio. And the traffic also ties into the land use as well.
Sure. I just wanted to make sure that commissioners had a clear purview of why the denial portion from staff and each of those reasons why, where that plays in, so that everybody has a clear picture of that. So at this time, I would switch gears and go to Commissioner Walsh. We'll start at the other end of the table.
I don't have anything at this time.
Excellent. Commissioner Gerda.
I guess I really don't, one question is, studies, I guess. Is there really a need for one of these, especially this size of the tenant? That would be my biggest question here, aside from traffic and all the other things that we touched on.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Gerda. Commissioner Thacker?
Yes, gentlemen, obviously the staff concerns are, that's something that I'm sure you were aware of prior to tonight's meeting. So my question would be, why isn't this being pursued with staff prior to us sitting down for this meeting? Because I have a lot of questions, but it's like I'm wasting oxygen by asking them, because there just isn't a lot of detail here. I agree with Mr. Martin. I don't want to sound prejudicial, but McHenry has a fine staff, and I think that it would have been a lot more prudent to have dealt with them more and gotten some of these bullet points answered prior to having a meeting. I mean, that's just my opinion, but the way it is now, this dog just doesn't hunt. There's too many questions here. That's basically what I have. I would really like to pursue what you're proposing here, but at this time, with a lot of these unanswered questions, I just wouldn't feel comfortable doing it. And that's basically what I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Thacker. Commissioner Sabota?
I would just be mimicking what Commissioner Thacker said, yeah, he brought up all my points, so I have nothing.
Thank you, Commissioner Doherty.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. In reading, I thought something would be cleaned up by the time of the meeting, you know, all these different things. And then I was looking at the size of this, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me, all this concrete and, parking, and that's the detention? That just jumps right out at me. Does that look like it could be right? But I don't see that really, I see just the picture here, but I'm just,
I won't answer for the petitioner, Commissioner Doherty, but I'm gonna guess that watershed requirements would have to be met on this property with that much impervious surface. And I'm not sure what the current structure of that parking lot is. It could have retention under the parking lot, I'm not sure. Again, one of those big questions to ask, I believe.
and then the commercial, you know, what is it? Is it a doctor's office? Is it a Subway? I have no idea. Nothing's spelled out on that.
Thank you, Commissioner Doherty. I'm gonna turn it over to the gentleman at the table. Do we know the layout of how large each one of those units would be? How many bedrooms how many of these units would be one bedroom? How many two bedroom? Do we have some of that laid out at this time?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
We haven't. I would only remind the commissioners that the exhibits that have been produced were intended to support the petition for the rezoning, and they are at best pre-concept and notional images. The second entrance is simply something that's on the site plan as a diagram. We're certainly not here seeking plan approval. The engineering for the site drainage and detention has not been undertaken because we're very much in pre-concept design right now. The layouts of the buildings, the configuration of the units have not been really even discussed programmatically yet. So we're really seeking, on behalf of the clients, the rezoning and the density on the site.
Got it. So, and then lastly, the commercial space. Do we know, we're looking at, I believe there's some square footages in here
10,000.
Yeah.
listed. Would that be physicians' offices or mixed use in that building? Do we have any idea of what that concept might look like as well?
Mostly physician offices and supportive to the independent living facility within that building. And as far as the parking variance for that piece of commercial, I think it is 3.5 per 1,000 square foot. So that's total of 35 parking spots. For the independent living, which our market study shows the need for 169 units. I think based on our conversation with Doug before, we're talking about like 0.5, which is about, for 175, it's about 85 parking spots, and 35, that's about 120. Based on the preliminary site plans or the conceptual drawing that we got from the architect, it was shown to be like we can accommodate up to 300 parking spots in there, and it still will be, it's an option for us to do. That doesn't mean that we're gonna put 300, we're gonna just embed with what is the requirements is. The other 125 units, based on a future market study, if it supports an expansion of an independent living facility, it's still gonna be at 0.5, so we might end up just with 100 parking spots. This is all pre-conceptual. The truth of the matter is we don't own this land yet. We have a purchase agreement, a contract, contingent upon approval of our M2 zoning. And we kind of seeked the traffic study to be done twice. And we did the market study for the independent living portion of the project. We invested in the pre-conceptual architectural drawing, and we are just here to ask for the RM2 zoning amendment. And we are not gonna be building if we don't have a need for it. You know, this require investment of money and resources, and there is no one even like as an investor is gonna come and allow us to the money to use it for the build out without any supportive study. Right now, what we have for sure is up to 169 units for independent living facility on a portion of that. What is left is less than 50%, which is 125 units for the max use of the property. And that's what we are looking for, to be allowed up to that amount. And we are not gonna proceed with it without providing the appropriate supportive study, whether it is a new updated traffic study or a new market analysis for that area.
Excellent, thank you. I believe that what the commissioners have spoken as well, tough to sit and give an approval, even on a conceptual layout, to change the, to make a zoning map amendment to RM2 when there's still a lot of question marks. Most of the time when someone comes to this, we get to this portion of the planning and zoning meeting, those questions have been laid out just a little bit further for us to make a recommendation to approve or deny based on what we're seeing. And I personally, and again, each one of the commissioners will speak for themselves, and I think they already have on the first round, that it's very tough to look at a denial or an approval when we don't really know what the layout really looks like internally, how many of those spots are going to be there. Again, you know, as the gentleman spoke about, you know, retention space and groundwater runoff and all of the things that come with a development of this size. I'm gonna speak for myself, but I think that most of the commissioners probably are feeling the same thing. I feel like I need some more information to make any kind of a judgment call on this building. So I'm gonna turn it back over to another round of commissioners, and I'm gonna start at the other end of the table with Commissioner Doherty here before I open it up to the public. Any additional things at this moment?
No, those are
Commissioner
my
Doherty?
questions.
Commissioner
No,
Sabota?
this time.
Commissioner Thacker?
Only that moving forward with something like this, it would be quite interesting to be asking you gentlemen questions such as runoff and detention and all of that, but going back to what I previously said, at this point, we can't even do that. I understand what you're saying, but to get in our wheelhouse, so to speak, that we would need a lot more answers than we would be getting this evening. I understand what you're saying, but you know, for us to really do our job, so to speak, our hands are kind of tied at this point. But it would be nice to move on where we could really consider looking at something like this and possibly going forward. We just don't have enough answers right now, I believe, to do that.
Thank you, Commissioner Thacker. Commissioner Gerber?
No other questions.
Commissioner Wolf?
No, I think it's all been said.
Excellent. At this time, I'm gonna open it to the public, and we will see how many people from the gallery start to jump up. I will open the public portion at this time. Bear with me just a second, sir. Are you Ben?
I am.
Excellent. Ben, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Ben Cornick, live at 5112 Cambridge Drive, McHenry, Illinois. And I'm here representing the chapel. I'm the pastor of the chapel here in McHenry. And so I've been before this group before. And so first of all, I just want to say thank you for your service to our city, all of you. It means a lot, and glad that you're here. And I just want to say that from our perspective, of course, for us, it would be great to sell this piece of property. The people from our congregation sacrificed a lot to purchase this piece of property at a time when building a new building was, at that time, a very good option. Now, of course, we are out at 1809 renovating that facility to be used as a shelter and a church facility. And so at this point, obviously selling this land would help us to even further that project along and move forward more quickly with all the plans that we have out there on Route 31. That being said, we also understand the position and the opinions of staff in this matter. For us, our hope is that the doctor would cooperate with the city. For us as a congregation, it's very important for us that we're a part of the city of McHenry and that we cooperate with the government and with the rest of the partners we have here in our community. And so, just wanted to share that from our perspective, our hope is that the doctor and the city government would be able to work together on this. Of course, it would be great for us to sell this piece of property, but we do understand many of the perspectives that were brought forward tonight. And so hopefully there is some way that things can move forward, given that the doctor is able to work and cooperate with the city government on this. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Ben. Mr. Stanek? I've sworn you in before, sir. Please raise your right hand. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Joseph Patrick Stanek, I go by Pat. First of all, it's interesting that the chapel's here because I was here speaking when they were annexed in, and just as a side note, as to tell the truth, one of the concerns I had when they annexed in was the property line, with a lot of issues with trees that had fallen down. My next door neighbor is dying of cancer. One of the trees fell on their property, cost them $2,000, which they didn't have to fix it, to have it hauled out. So I brought that up to here, and the chapel promised that if anything happened afterward, they would take care of it. Just as a reference of fact, a tree did fall down 2 weeks after we annexed, or you did, or a month, and a 60-foot tree fell down, and there was zero help. I know most of the people from the chapel, and just wanted to point that out, I guess. But I'd like to show this for a second. I've heard a lot today, and I understand why you don't want to do it, but I haven't heard one thing about the property owners. When I'm looking at this plan, and my daughter is she builds much larger buildings than this. But anyway, when I see this, and I see how this is drawn out, I asked Ross about the setbacks, and he told me 30 feet, or is it 60?
Rear yard?
From where our backyards are.
Your rear yard's 25, their rear yard's 25.
There's a 15-foot easement back there from my backyard, from my pin is 225 feet. My backyard, I've got a 5 foot of stairs, 30 feet of a patio and a lot of grass in between. When I look at that, and I asked Ross about it, the depth he had showed me of the backyard from those buildings would be about the size of my patio. I was very concerned about that. I haven't heard anyone yet say anything about the height of the building. I understand it's not a one-story building, is it?
40 feet.
It's 40 feet. Is that to the rooftop?
Yes.
Okay, 40 feet.
That applies.
So you're talking 30 feet off the back of the property line, 40 feet high. I'm assuming some of the people here have a single-family home. Does anybody here not have a single-family home? I'm wondering how many people want a 40-foot structure 30 feet off the property line, first of all, which has not been addressed. When this group came here in the summer, and I came to the meeting to see Sean, he informed me that day that they decided not to come forward and that they were going to tweak it. They were tweaking it from 72 units to something else. The 72 units were on the south edge of the property at the first plan. Or am I wrong? I swore to tell the truth. I do believe that the site plan had it at the south side, 72 units, which was not approved. The tweak comes back, the letter comes in from us, which states nothing about the project. None of my neighbors know about it. The lady that was sitting here today that walked out because she didn't know anything about the project because there was no knowledge of anything. So it does seem like a lot of the property owners that I live next to don't know what's going on. When I spoke to them, they're all very, very concerned. So as I'm speaking forward, I do hope that the board is concerned with the property values. I want to know whether there was a study for devaluation of the property. If there's any realtors here, I would like to know whether the listing would change if there was a 40-foot building 30 feet off the back of the property as opposed to what they are now. And if there's not been a study, I would like there to be a study. What is the devaluation? I live next to a realtor who also told me there's a devaluation. I'm not an expert in that, but some people are. So to go forward with this project is just amazing that the tweak goes from 72 units to 175, which is a 243% increase in phase one. The second phase is 125, which is, I had the numbers here, 173% increase off of the 72, not counting it. So the increase in what you proposed in the summer, which we came here, is 416% increase, not counting commercial. The neighbors that I have, the ones that I've spoke to, are baffled. Absolutely baffled. If anyone here has a home where there's a 40-foot piece of property 30 feet off their property line, I want them to stand up and tell me what it's like. There's a 15-foot easement on both sides, unless that's been changed, but on my plan of survey, it shows 15 feet on both sides. So that means you have 15 feet from the end of the easement to the building, which then reaches 40 feet high. I hope that is addressed. I hope that's thought of. If they decide to go forward, I would hope that's the issue. I haven't heard anybody yet speak to the existing property owners. I've been paying my taxes on that street for 30 years, as have some of the other people. I would like to have consideration for that, and I don't know if you great people ever considered that. I mean, I'm curious about that. And if my other neighbors were here, they would have been more animated. So, I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Sanic, appreciate it. And I apologize, Aaron, I believe is the first name? Thank you. I try to not screw them up, but when I can't read them, I try to guess as best as I can.
I apologize.
No,
Handwriting has never been my strength. But
it's all good, sir. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Absolutely.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Aaron Butler. I live on 4764 Oregon Trail, McHenry, Illinois.
Thank you.
First of all, I do want to echo everybody's thank you and appreciation for what you guys do and what they're doing and what all of the community members are doing by coming up and speaking. You guys give us a great platform to do so, and it is our job as a community to step up and have to take advantage of the opportunity. And so I want you to know that I appreciate that, and we do have ample enough opportunity to do that. As I listened to you, Mr. Martin, give us the report, and I appreciate that. I will tell you I was blown away by the questions and the blanks, to be really honest with you. But I think part of the process of working with the local community and the government and investors, it is exactly that, it's a process. And I think a lot of times people have to go through the process to know how they can grow as investors or community members by asking the questions and when there's glaring holes in some of their investigations and their data findings. I think I live in the same neighborhood as that gentleman. I do not live on that property line, but I can echo that that should be a concern, and any developer, when you're coming into a community, needs to be taken into consideration. And I would hope that they do work on that, and part of joining a community is working with not only you guys, but everybody involved. In our community, we have spent, and you guys were passing referendums and things like that, to take care of the youth. From the water parks, et cetera, and we have done a really nice job in creating that, and along with the meeting prior to this one, taking care of our youth. But as we do that, we also have to talk and look at our elders as well. And I think that is, we all know that. We don't need to spit out the data. We all know that is a huge part of our population. McHenry in general does not have a lot of facilities, and we have had some of them on Crystal Lake Road in the last couple of years, which is great. I will tell you that I have had my grandparents live in facilities like they're talking about and other investors, and they have prolonged their life and given them great opportunity. And I have my parents coming into that age, and it would be great for me to not have to have them go elsewhere, but to be by family and have high quality facilities. So I think it's important that we do that. The biggest thing I would say is, when we go into neighborhoods and we look at neighborhood developments, they do a projection of homes over a period of time. So one of the things that stuck in my head, and I think Mr. Thacker, you brought it up, was and I apologize if I don't have the right person, what's the time frame? It's this mystery, okay, when it's as needed. And I think we see that, and you see developments where neighborhoods go in and they have the roads and they only go till so far because they don't have the projection. And I think we have to look at that as well, and we have to understand that, rather than building a 300-unit facility at 40 feet high and just hoping it fills. Let's do it in phases. I think that's smart, but I think timelines and data and analysis is important. I would encourage everybody to continue to work on building this relationship and working together to see if we can make it work. Whether it's tonight or not, I think is irrelevant, quite honestly. We would like it to move forward in a faster pace because we all have things to do, right? And we don't want to continue to revisit. But I think working over time and working and creating a partnership, I would strongly suggest that and encourage that. And I mean partnership with community as much as with the investors and the people that work with you guys every day. So I thank you for your time and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Butler, appreciate it. Do I have anyone else from the gallery who is not signed in that would like to speak tonight? Seeing no movement from the gallery, I'll close the public portion of the meeting. At this time, I will return it back to the commissioners for additional questions or concerns. Commissioner Walsh.
I think there would have been a lot more questions proposed if there was more meat in the documents, right? So I think we all have probably 10 or 12 questions, but there's no answers there. So I guess what's your take right now, your feel on looking at what's on the paper and what's, you know, the differences in traffic study? What's your gut telling you right now of coming back with more substance?
I just want to give a little bit of clarification about the traffic study. This traffic study was done initially for the chapel, and it got revised based on our first proposal, and it got revised again based on the final proposal of the full development of the site. The traffic study is only looking at whether we need a right turn lane and a right turn lane in and a right turn lane out. That's basically the whole idea behind traffic. It is not anything else. And according to the final results of the traffic study, they said, based on phase 1, there is no need for a turn lane in or a turn lane out if we are talking about the 169 units of senior living. It opened the door for revising the traffic study with phase 2 to decide if that is going to be needed or not. The draft of the traffic study was submitted to the city before it got finalized by the firm that we are using a couple times. I did not see this comments and conflicts till within the last week or two. I am more than happy to take it back to that firm that we used to revise it and to update it based on the questions of the staff. But I don't think this is the core behind approval or denial. It is just talking about whether we're gonna put a right turn lane in or out. It is not talking about an increase of traffic, because more than 70% of the project is for senior living. That's all what it is. And actually, even if we're gonna put commercial in there, that's as an amenities for the people who live in the building to be for their own convenience. So I'm not imagining that there's a lot of traffic is gonna be coming from outside also to visit these doctor offices, but yet, the parcel is 13 acres of land. 2 acres of them has been put on the side because of the topography of the land. It is in low area, and that's what is gonna be used for detention. And when we're saying 2 acres of detention in comparison to 11 acres of the land to be used for development. I'm not an engineer, but I think it is more than enough, and if it is need to be added, I don't think it should be a problem at all. We do have also outside areas that, on the corners that was left to be used for detention if it is possibly needed to. All of this is conceptual, and again, we are just trying to get the concept in, and all what we are requesting is the zoning amendment that it will be approved for an RM2. We are not gonna build up anything without the city approval, and we are not gonna build it up without supportive documents and traffic and marketing study that support the use of the property anyway.
You know, one of the points that you raise is a big property and also drawing fund to build up this property is not easy. What that means is there is prerequisites for that. I'm not gonna ask a bank for a loan without providing them with a very strong market study, okay, to give me their money to build the property. So this is something, with all respect, is logical. We're not gonna build, second stage without a very strong market study, and at the same time, from the investor point of view, I cannot buy a piece of land which is 13 acres and make all infrastructures and all the costs with everything, and build 72 units on it. So the cost for the unit will not justify the return on investment. Not only for me, it's for any investor. So this has to be taken considerations from both sides, from the regulation side and the investor side too. So this is what we want, and we want to stress out that we are potential buyer for the property, but that means that there will be a lot of money invested, and this money will not be invested until there is enough assurance that there will be a sense in this. So that's what I want to say.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Commissioner Wall? Sure. Commissioner Gerd.
So knowing that this is still a concept and this is probably not how it would be designed, or maybe it is how it would be designed. Listening to Mr. Stanek, that is something that that actually crossed my mind, but we never did get far enough into discussion. A 40-foot structure next to a residential building with 30-foot, space in between. There is not even enough room there for a tree buffer to hide it. I know I definitely wouldn't want to live there. If I guess my recommendation on it would be, and I know you're saying that it's not cost effective, and if it's not cost effective, maybe that's not the right place, but it needs to look more like a smaller residential building, such as the properties on Crystal Lake Road across the street from the post office. I mean, they're nice, hidden, they don't stand out, they do have a nice finish. This looks, this design here, as it is a concept, it just looks like a hotel room to me, or a hotel. I could not live next to it, and I personally wouldn't want it in a neighborhood.
Thank you, Commissioner Gerda. Moving on to Commissioner Thacker.
I really don't have much to add. I think after hearing some of the speakers tonight, if you could look at the position we're in regards to, let's say, the size of your building, let's just put in the cart before the horse, how we stand right now. If my suggestion would be if you work with staff in how to better advance what you hope to accomplish tonight, where we could ask the questions such as setback, height. This isn't our first rodeo. We've gone through this a number of years with a number of projects. We just finished one not too terribly long ago on Route 31 north of McHenry, where there was a building height, there was an issue, but that was all addressed as the process went along, people can say. And in my opinion, you've got a good looking structure there, but there was the pecking order that we followed, and I think that's what we have to do here. I understand what you gentlemen are saying completely, you're gonna make an investment, that you wanna make sure that you have your, what you wanna do in place, you know, before you're buying land. I understand that, but I think if you, McHenry has a fine staff, and I think if you work with them, I have some questions too, just based on what I heard tonight, but I'm not gonna get the answers tonight. To make a rational decision, we need those answers. If you work with our staff, I think you'll be able to progress, far enough where we can move along with this, whether you get approval or not. But we're not gonna be able to accomplish that tonight, we just don't know enough. But I look forward to meeting with you again, where we can answer our questions. But my suggestion would be work with staff. Mr. Martin, he runs a tight ship, he knows what he's doing. And that would be, what I would do if I were you, for what it's worth.
Thank you, Commissioner Thacker. Commissioner Sabota?
I would encourage you to work with staff as well. There's a lot of questions I have that I don't think I'm gonna get an answer to, so I think you should listen to your neighbors, maybe think about your redesign. I think if you push the main section back and made it more of a T, you put parking on either side, that would alleviate some space between you and your neighbors. I don't see, you got a lot of people living there. I don't know where your service trucks are gonna come for your food. I mean, you're gonna have a lot of trucks going in. Staff your kitchen, feed your people. I don't see where they're gonna turn around. I don't know where your HVAC units are. Are they gonna be on the roof? Are they gonna be behind the building? I mean, I don't know where you're gonna tuck those, and things like that. But I encourage you to work with staff to get a lot of questions answered. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner
Yeah.
Sabota. Commissioner Jordan?
Mine would just be a repeat of all that again, so, you get your ducks in a row and try to visit us again.
I guess I'll throw my 2 cents in the mix as well. I think I would love to see this project come to us. I would love to see this in one shape or form come back and be able to look at the plan with how many bedrooms are going to be accommodate, how many 1-bedroom, how many 2-bedroom. To one of the commissioner's points, I forget if it was Commissioner Sabota or not, you know, egress for service vehicles, how some of those things are going to lay out, I think is critical. You know, looking at, again, listening to the neighboring community and maybe pushing that boundary line a little different direction. I think there's a great start here to the plan. I'm not sure that this commission can make a decision with not quite enough information. I didn't hear any one of the commissioners say they wouldn't want to see this happen, but without having enough of that information, this is a super tough place for us to try to make a decision on. So, you know, this gets left back to you gentlemen to decide how you want to proceed forward. You know, would you like us to continue this case and have you come back to us with a revised plan? Do you want us to vote on this the way it stands tonight? You know, I think from what I'm hearing from the commissioners, everybody would like to see a revised plan and make another attempt at trying to get something revised and turned in that we can make a decision from. But I think at this point, it sounds to me like the commission has all said, we just don't have enough information to be able to make a decision. So I'm happy to call the vote to order now, or I'm happy to continue and let you revise that plan. And I don't know if you've explored all of those things, if we take a no vote tonight and how that all works, so. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, the only comment I would make is in order to determine and provide the answers to the questions that you're asking for, we would have to undertake the design. And we would have to undertake the site plan. And we're not here asking for site plan approval. We're not here asking for design approval. All of those issues get resolved when you do get into detailed programming of the facility. Where are the services? Where is the traffic? Where are the loading docks? What are the unit sizes? What are the unit mixes? What is the parking requirement that is rendered from those unit mixes? And you can't establish those kinds of answers, which is what it sounds like you're asking for, unless you undertake a significant portion of the design. These gentlemen are contingent purchasers on the property, seeking a zoning amendment. We're not asking you to approve that picture on the board. I would point out that the tightest point off the property line of building number 2 is about 60 feet from the property line.
Okay.
But having said that,
I wouldn't recommend this is my recommendation. I wouldn't recommend approving a zoning map amendment without knowing what you're approving a zoning map amendment for.
And I was just gonna chime in on that. Once we change the zoning, that's it. And you can come in, and so long as you meet the code, you can put it in. So this is the only time that we may maintain any sort of control is before we actually change the zoning on the property.
I've been in this chair for a few of these meetings. I will tell you that in those meetings that I've been in attendance for this commission and this body to make a vote, we've never voted with this little information.
Yeah.
By the time we get to this level, we normally have a pretty good semblance of what those units are gonna lay out. We can get questions answered on EMS. How do you get in and out of this structure? Traffic study, not only traffic study, but this commission also is concerned about left traffic, turning southbound traffic on Crystal Lake Road, turning left into the development. I can guarantee we didn't even touch that tonight, and I can guarantee that will be a concern as well. We had the very same concern when the chapel purchased the property, and I'm sure Ben can shake his head up and down that it was one of the questions we had when they purchased the property as well. Do we need turn lanes here or not? Looking at the traffic study, we just don't have quite enough. I think everybody here would be happy to continue the meeting and get those questions answered, and have you continue to work with staff and Mr. Martin to get that resolved. This is completely in your court at this time. But I will say that, again, I've been here long enough to see enough of these that we would love to entertain it, and we would love to have you do that. Yes, there's some cost to that. We just need some more information to make that decision.
Do you understand the options?
Yeah.
Yes, I think we'll proceed with the vote.
With the vote, yes. Can proceed with the
Vote?
Yes.
Yes, sir. At this time, do I have any additional questions or concerns from commissioners? Oh, okay.
I'm gonna add a few when you, I'm just gonna add based on your comments. So when somebody makes the vote, I'm gonna suggest additional language. And whoever's making the motion agrees, just indicate that. If you don't agree, then you don't need to listen to my language. It's fine.
Excellent. So at this time, I would be looking for a motion.
Is it a zoning map amendment?
Oh, yeah, we're running these as 3?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
we
so
can
these
do-
will be different, yes, thank you, Doug, for clarifying that. Yeah, so I'm looking for a motion of, I'm looking for a motion for whatever it is you would like, either approval or denial of the zoning map amendment to RM2 high-density multifamily residential, and that the requirements of table 33, the zoning map amendments of the zoning ordinance, according to staff, have not been met, with additional language from
I mean, I can
Attorney
just throw it
Cahill.
out there now. if
Sure,
you want.
on this item, yes.
Yeah, so with regards to, well, no, because I don't want to, because I don't know what the motion is.
Yes, sir. Excellent. Good point, Attorney Cahill. Do I have a motion?
I will.
Commissioner Walsh, do I have a second?
Which motion is he
We need the
making?
motion
The motion to denial, of zoning map to RM2 high-density multi-family residential.
Based on the finding that the requirements of table 33, the zoning map amendments of the zoning code have not been met, specifically, that there has not been a showing that there is a need for high-density multifamily in this area, and also, that there's unanswered questions with regards to how high density it will be and how that will impact traffic flow.
As stated.
I have a question on that.
Yes, Commissioner.
Could Kelly repeat the first part of that again?
So if we're changing the zoning, you have to show that it's the highest and best use. that the zoning change that they want is highest and best use of the property, and my statement is that that they have not met the standards to show that the requested zoning is highest and best use. Specifically, that they have not shown that there is a need for high-density multifamily in this area.
Okay, okay. I just wanted to be clear on that.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Commissioner Gerda on a second. Additional questions or concerns from commissioners after the additional language?
So a yes means no.
Correct.
Voting to deny.
Yeah, so we are voting to deny, just so we're clear.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Doherty,
Yes.
Commissioner Strack,
Yes.
Commissioner Sabota,
Yes.
Commissioner Thacker,
Yes.
Commissioner Gerda,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh.
Yes.
Motion to deny approved.
Moving on to item number 2, denial of the variance from off-street parking and loading requirements to develop the property in accordance with the site plan submitted as part of the the application packet. Looking for a motion to either approve or deny that item, and that staff also finds the requirements in table 32 variances of the zoning ordinance have not been met, and any additional language from Attorney Cahill.
I'll make that motion to deny the variance for off-street park and loading requirements. Finding that the requirements in table 32 of the zoning ordinance have not been met.
And including but not limited to that there was not sufficient information provided indicating how dense this use will be. There will be 1 or 2 bedroom units, which again would dictate the parking and the traffic flow.
As stated by Attorney Cahill.
As stated by Attorney Cahill. Do I have a second?
A second.
I'm gonna give that one to Commissioner Gerda. Additional questions or concerns? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Doherty,
Yes.
Commissioner Strack,
Yes.
Commissioner Sabota,
Yes.
Commissioner Thacker,
Yes.
Commissioner Gerda.
Yes.
Motion denied.
Moving on, item number 3, approval or denial of a use variance to allow commercial land use on the subject property, and that staff finds the requirements in table 32A, the use variances of the zoning ordinance have not been met. Once I have a motion, Attorney Cahill will probably add some language to that one as well. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to deny use variance to allow commercial land use on the subject property, to allow commercial land subject property, finding that the requirements in table 32A, use variances of the zoning ordinance have not been met.
And specifically that the petitioners did not show, or provide any evidence of an undue hardship that would justify a use variance.
As stated?
As stated by Attorney Cahill.
Thank you. Commissioner Doherty on a second?
Correct.
Thank you, sir. Any additional questions, concerns? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Doherty,
Yes.
Commissioner Strack,
Yes.
Commissioner Sabota,
Yes.
Commissioner Thacker,
Yes.
Commissioner Gerda.
Yes.
Motion to deny carried.
Excellent, thank you, Dorothy. Gentlemen, thank you very much. If you would like to get in touch with Doug, he can help you in the future. Thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to close file Z940. Staff, please give us your report.
We, on Monday evening, we will have the future land use map, the existing land use map on the council agenda, as well as the requested approval for the agricultural zoning district and the mixed-use zoning district. So the agenda's online. If you want to come, we'd be more than happy to have you at 7:00 p.m. here.
And the walk path will be on it.
Yes. And next meeting is next year. It's next year.
The next meeting is next year. Thanks, Ben.
The end of the month, right?
January 30th. That's all I had.
January 30th. I'll be
I
back.
just want to say thank you to Art. Thank you to you.
Any additional questions or concerns for staff or Attorney Cahill? Since we have a special guest tonight.
It's nice to see her.
It is nice. We appreciate her being
We
here.
we request a picture just in case we have another.
We'll just put a picture
We
there.
don't wanna forget what you look like.
Put it right up on the wall behind you. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make it.
Sabota? Mr. Thacker, was that you on the second?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Anyone opposed? Meeting's adjourned.
Dorothy, that was really good, thank you. Both of